Appearing in court, the former news anchor accused of killing her own mother, Angie Mock, was in tears as she left that hearing. She's accused of stabbing her mom multiple times, killing her on Halloween.
And welcome, Angie Mock.
Thank you.
There you go.
I'm so excited to be here, and I look forward to connecting with you guys out there in St. Louis.
That video per Fox 2 in St. Louis posted to their YouTube page a decade ago. This story is a shocking downfall of a former fixture on morning television. And we have the latest from the courtroom, what her defense may be and what we know about why she would allegedly kill her own mother, who was in her 80s and was a woman who is beloved by many. We're on the case, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Well, this case has many people wondering, what happened? What happened in Angie Mock's life after she left TV news, and what happened inside a home in Wichita, Kansas on Halloween? Now, this is the first time that Law and Crime's cameras were in the courtroom to see Mock since her arrest. Her hearing in Wichita, Kansas, it was brief. She left the court in tears. Now, we have seen so many people shocked that Angie Mock would be accused of killing her own mom. Her social media from her time in TV, it's like a time capsule from a different life. Many people remember her from the many stops that she made in the world of local television news before she left the business.
After being caught on camera stealing her neighbor's Christmas lights.
That's Mock's resume reel from her time in TV. It's still posted on YouTube, and she just seems so different from the person that she allegedly became. Now, as far as what was said in court, what it means for her case, and there's a pretty big development on that front. We're going to talk about it in just a moment. But first, let's just dive into what we know about Angie Mock, this woman who once woke people up in the morning with the news and what was going on in their community. Angie Mock, according to her LinkedIn, used to work in local news for more than a decade. Now, that is the type of job. On the outside, it might seem glamorous, and there are many pictures of Mock from her time in TV where it seems like she was living this glamorous life. But make no mistake, it's a business where it takes a grind to make it. And it appears that Mock, in her career, really paid her dues. She started in a small market November 2002. That was as a sports reporter in Lincoln, Nebraska. Then she went through Rochester, Minnesota, Missoula, Montana, Oklahoma City, and then to the biggest place that she worked, St. Louis. That's where she was a morning news anchor from March of 2011 through February of 2015. Now, after that, she transitioned to software sales, according to her LinkedIn. Along the way, it seems like she had a ton of support from her family, especially her mom, a woman named Anita Avers. Avers worked as a clinical and family therapist in Wichita, Kansas. Her biography reads that she specialized in treating adults experiencing depression, anxiety, spectrum disorders, trauma, and mood disorders, as well as relationship issues, including couples and marriages, family conflict, infidelity, and divorce. It also appears that Avers was just a proud mom. Her Facebook profile picture is of her daughter, Angie Mock, live in the field reporting. And here's a picture of Avers and Mock together. This was posted in 2019. A family therapist and a morning news anchor, a mother and a daughter. It makes what happened in this story, October 31st of this year, according to Wichita police, just so difficult to comprehend.
This morning at 7:51 hours, officers responded to a stabbing call in the 1500 block of East Crowley. When officers arrived on scene, they were met in the street with a 48-year-old white female who had suffered from some cuts to her hand. Officers went inside the residence, found an 81-year-old elderly female suffering from multiple stab wounds. Both were transported to local hospitals.
Police say Angie Mock, the former cheerful morning news anchor, killed her own mom, stabbing her multiple times inside their home. A neighbor told local TV station KAKE that Mock allegedly ran up to her and her boyfriend. Here's the quote that she gave the TV outlet. Quote, "There was a woman who approached our vehicle with blood, like her hands were filled, her body was filled with blood, asking to call 911. Now, that neighbor said that Mock took their cell phone. She then ran into the house, and she described Mock acting, quote, scared. Mock's mom, who you see her hugging in this picture, Anita Avers, was rushed to the hospital, and the 81-year-old passed away. She died allegedly at the hands of her own daughter. Hey guys, before we get into this episode of On the Case, let's talk about something important, and that's credit card debt. And it's not always an accident. Every call, every fee, every high interest trap, it can really feel like the system is designed to keep Americans stuck. Banks profit, creditors win, and real families lose. But today's sponsor, PDS Debt, helps people fight back. Maybe it's credit cards or personal loans or medical bills. PDS Debt has customized options to help you pay off debt faster, no minimum credit score required. Plus, they are A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Now, we all know that credit card debt is a problem. You may know people struggling with it as well, looking for a way out. Well, it's your money, it's your future. Don't let the system decide for you. You are 30 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment and find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/OTC. pdsdebt.com/OTC. That is pdsdebt.com/OTC. Now here's Mock's mugshot. Her full name is Angie. She's 47 years old and she was taken into custody on first-degree murder charges. That is what she's facing right now. We found the 911 dispatch chatter from when Mock called for help. And we do get a little bit of information from that about what Mock's side of the story may be.
Only just wanting to the cutting at 1514 Scarlet Street. The calling parties advised that mom tried to own one CP. The calling party stabbed her mom. The mother started slicing a CP and the calling party had to stab the mother to save herself. The mother is a white female, 5'9" heavy build, standoff on a rifle. Would you like an attack channel?
Now the key part that you just heard there, dispatchers say that Mock said something along the lines of needing to allegedly stab her mom to save herself. So does it seem like Angie Mock is arguing that this was in self-defense? Both Mock and her mom were taken to the hospital. Police said that Mock did have cuts on her hands. It's unclear if those are considered defensive wounds at this point. It's also unclear if Mock or her mom were dealing with any mental health issues or if the two of them had any previous issues, any sort of domestic violence issues. Now, we weren't able to find any previous criminal history for Angie Mock.
All right, are you Ms. Mock?
That was Mock at her first court appearance. That was per KSN TV. She gave a smile to someone as she entered the room from the county jail to video chat with the judge. Then this is Mock's second court appearance. This time she was in person in the courtroom for a preliminary hearing and Law&Crime's cameras were there. We saw Mock walked in. She's wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. And this hearing, it was very brief, but it could be very impactful to how this case moves forward. In that hearing, her defense argued that Mock's case should be taken, quote, off docket, meaning that it's no longer active, and the prosecution didn't oppose that. Her attorney had requested that Mock be evaluated to see if she would be competent to stand trial. Now, we don't know much about what was going on in Mock's life after she left the world of television news and was no longer really in the public eye. It's unclear if she's been diagnosed with any mental health issues. At the end of this hearing, and it lasted for less than 5 minutes, we saw Angie Mock get up and be brought back into custody, and we could see the emotion in her face as she was led away. It's unclear when that evaluation could be completed and what could happen next in her case. As far as Angie Mock's mom, Anita Avers. In her obituary, Avers was described as a woman of faith who had a passion for counseling. Avers was a clinical and family therapist in Wichita. Her biography reads that she specialized in treating adults experiencing depression, anxiety, spectrum disorders, trauma, and mood disorders, as well as relationship issues like marriages, family conflict, infidelity, and divorce. And in her obituary, it also says that one of the people she survived by, her daughter, Angie Mock. Join us now to talk about where this case could go next is Rich Schoenstein, trial lawyer. Thank you, sir, for taking your time to be with us on Law and Crime. Just first, before we dive into this case, what stands out to you when you just look at this defendant, Angie Mock, and what we know about her at this point?
Well, I think more than what we know is what we don't know, because we don't really have an idea of why this happened, right? Anytime you get multiple stab wounds leading to somebody's death, that kind of gets your attention. Something must have gone catastrophically wrong, but we don't know what that is yet. We don't know if that's her mental health. We don't know if that has to do with her relationship with her mother, or we don't know if there's something else. But something had to go terribly, terribly wrong here.
Yeah, and you just look at like the way I see it is when she was in TV news, and it appears she left the business in like 2017 or so, it's like a completely different person just over the course of a decade. I mean, obviously time goes on, people age, but it just, that's such a big question in this is what happened in her life over that period of time. When you look at this case, and in this preliminary hearing, it was very brief, and they're going to evaluate her for competency. What goes into that, and whether or not she could actually be competent to stand trial because she is facing this first-degree murder charge?
Yeah, so the competency determination is very much about the present. This isn't an insanity determination that goes to the merits of the charges against her. It's about right now. Does she understand the charges against her? Is she capable of participating in her defense? Can she communicate with the lawyer successfully? Is she able to appear in court and remain civil and be in court and participate in the court proceedings? That's really what the court is going to try to get at in determining competence.
What would happen if she's found not to be competent?
If she's not competent, generally the court will suspend the criminal proceedings and order some kind of further treatment. Could be inpatient, could be outpatient. If there are serious issues raised by her incompetence, she could be, potentially committed. Some cases, people are restored to competence, and then the trial goes forward. There's a lot of different possibilities.
What goes into determining whether or not someone is competent? Because when we see her in court, she's in tears, clearly very emotional, and that's, on the outside looking and seeing that she's someone who realizes the situation that she's in. What does a doctor look at? Like, what is the bar that's going to have to be met for her to be found competent to stand trial against this?
Well, I think that may be a slightly better question for a psychologist, because I can't really tell you that as a lawyer. But the fact that she's emotional in court actually, to me, suggests competence, because she's upset about the proceedings. She should be upset about the proceedings. Her mother is dead. She apparently killed her, and she's on trial for murder. So if that makes you emotional, it doesn't necessarily mean you're incompetent. Again, I go back to, do you understand the nature of what's happening? And if you're crying in court, you may very well understand what's happening.
Then I also look at what we know about what allegedly happened on Halloween. And there's only two people that know what happened inside the home, and one of them has passed away, and that was Anita Avers, Angie Mock's mom. But you have this neighbor who is a witness who says that Angie Mock comes running out of the house. She seems scared. She's covered in blood, and she asked for a cell phone so she could call 911. Similarly to the emotion in the courtroom, is that something that could hurt an argument that she's not competent in understanding what happened?
So when you look at competency, you don't generally look at the actual incident. You're only looking at right now, although I guess here the incident is only a couple of weeks ago, so maybe you would go back. But yeah, the idea that she ran, she knew she should contact the authorities, she called 911, that does suggest some tethering to reality that might not be incompetence, that maybe she knew something had gone seriously wrong. But I don't know enough about her mental state. Some people snap in and out of reality very quickly in a way that could preclude them from being competent at trial, even though in a single moment they may get it.
And when it comes to not just her mental state, but which we don't know a lot about, we also don't know a lot about the evidence that prosecutors will have against her, because she's charged with first-degree murder, and I'm just getting the criminal complaint up here of specifically the words that they use in saying that she unlawfully, intentionally, and with premeditation killed a human being, which was Anita Avers, her mom. For them to prove that this was premeditated, what type of evidence would they need to have?
Premeditation, right? So intentionally means she meant to kill her. She wasn't just defending herself. She wasn't just trying to injure her or scare her. She meant to kill her. Premeditation means she planned it. what kind of evidence could there be? For example, if she obtained a weapon and brought it to the home, as opposed to whether she just grabbed something that happened to be in the home already. People do all kinds of things in a premeditated way. There could be financial things that she did in advance. If you buy somebody an insurance policy and then kill them the next day, that suggests premeditation, that you were planning on doing it. So there's all sorts of different things. If you lured the person to the place where you killed them, that suggests premeditation. I don't know which of those factors, I don't know what the evidence here will be.
But when it comes to, say, the period of time that someone plans to kill somebody, if it's, on one hand, for weeks, they decided that on Halloween, and I'm not saying that it's for this case, but just in generally speaking, for weeks, someone decides that they're going to kill this person on this date. How does that compare to if she left the room and maybe they're having some sort of dispute, she leaves the room, she grabs a knife, then walks right back into the room and then allegedly attacks, her mom? Is that premeditation, even if it's just a couple of minutes?
Yeah, that's for a jury to determine, because we separate these concepts, what we call a heat of passion or a heat of the moment killing, where somebody snaps and kills somebody because of something that's going on, usually some kind of conflict, and often involving family members. We see it a lot with husband and wife. We see it a lot where there are cheating allegations, and we see it sometimes with parents and children. So if somebody snaps, they can run into the other room, grab a weapon, come back and commit the murder. But if there is significant time, and leave it to the jury to determine what that is, you come out of the realm of heat of the moment and go into premeditation. If you have an opportunity to calm down, then you're going to move into premeditation. If you go upstairs and search through your belongings for the right weapon and then come back downstairs, you now have had enough time to sort of realize what you're doing is fundamentally wrong and back away from it. And so that kind of deliberation opportunity will take you out of what would otherwise be heat of passion.
And looking at, to this point, if she was to go with the self-defense argument, her mom was 81 years old, and her mom was found unresponsive in a bed. Angie Mock is 47 years old. We don't know what happened inside the house. It appears that only the two of them know what happened inside the house. But do those factors on the outside, kind of the tail of the tape of her being 47, her mom's 81, her mom was in a bed, for her defense, what type of impact could just those factors in general have on how a jury could view what happened inside the home?
It's really hard to imagine a sustainable self-defense argument here, because exactly as you say, there's a significant age difference, and I presume, might not be true, but I presume a difference in physical capability. So if you were in fear of being harmed, you could run and get out of there. Or you could stab her once, right? When you have multiple stabbings, like apparently are true in this case, it seems to go beyond what any reasonable person could construe as self-defense, even if there was a basis to want to defend yourself. So I have a real problem seeing any kind of self-defense argument here. But I don't know what lies underneath. What are the factors in this mother-daughter relationship that may be brought out or may come into play in this trial? I mean, I'm totally speculating here, but what if there's a history of abuse? You don't really know what's going to come out until you see some of the evidence.
Because when I think of like the stand your ground defense that we've seen in a lot of cases where someone believes that their life is in jeopardy and the only thing that they have to do, or the only option they have in that moment, is to turn to lethal force. How does, and I'm not particularly sure how Kansas views that, but how does that vary from state to state about the right that you have as a person in conflict to turn to deadly force? I mean, in this case, an 81-year-old woman, according to police, was stabbed multiple times, and she's found unresponsive in her bed.
Well, what stand your ground laws, and they do vary a lot, What stand your ground laws typically do is they eliminate the argument that you should have turned around and fled. Because a stand your ground law says you don't have to run away, especially if you're in your own house, that you're entitled to stay there and defend yourself if you are under threat. But you still have to prove that there's a threat of some sort of serious physical injury. You still have to show to be able to use a stand your ground law that you were under risk. Otherwise, it wouldn't apply for the most part.
When a defense attorney is staring at a case where it appears that there could be a lot of evidence, that it could just be a very tall mountain to climb when it comes to some of the factors, and we have a long way to go. This just only happened on Halloween. And for her defense attorney who takes up this case, I mean, what are the early steps of how you figure out what happened as you start to shape your defense for your client?
So I think the first thing the defense attorney wants to do here is figure out competency. That's important to the court, but it's also important to the defense, because you have to know if your client is competent to go to trial. You have to know if your client is competent such that the exchanges you are having with your client are reliable. If you have a truly incompetent client, you may not be getting information that is useful in working on the defense because you don't know if it's accurate or not. So I would be very interested right away in figuring out if this client was competent, both through my own determination and through independent psychological determination. If this defendant is competent, I would try to understand why this happened, which you and I are spitballing, but we really don't know. And then I probably would be thinking about how can I negotiate some kind of deal here, because it doesn't appear to be any dispute that she killed her mother. That seems to be apparent from the circumstances. And it seems to be the kind of situation where maybe something can be worked out between defendants and the authorities to resolve that. But that's only after we get past competency.
How long typically does it take, and I know this is also something that could vary from state to state, how long does it take once a judge says, okay, we're going to see if this defendant is competent to stand trial, to get to the point where you actually have the information you need to make that determination?
I think probably a couple of months. I think you need to give, because the evaluator needs to sit with, obviously, the defendant and analyze her, but they're also going to talk to people who know her. They're going to talk to the attorney about what the attorney's interactions have been like to help figure out if the defendant can participate in her defense. And, bring that all together in some sort of report. So I would say probably 60 days or so.
All right, and we'll see how this plays out. Obviously very early, a lot of information still to be released by law enforcement. No doubt, incredibly sad case though, not just for the victim, but to just see a downfall of someone who 10 years ago seemed to be living just such a different life. Rich Schoenstein, trial lawyer, thank you as always for taking the time to be with us on Law and Crime. We really appreciate your perspective on this.
Good to see you. Take care.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.